everybody, and welcome back to the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 14. We're coming up on 15 quickly. It's gone by super fast, probably not for y'all, but it has for us while we're talking up here. As a reminder, we are the only podcast that features a former UCF National Champion, a former UCF radio host, and several podcasters shooting the breeze talking UCF sports, and as a new addition, Nobra, the producer. So he's graced us with his presence. He stuck around for another week. He surprised us last week with some messages on the YouTube stream. So those are well worth the watch. And we will have some more YouTube shorts coming out this week. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that. Excited. I'm going to allow Josh to pop his collar, but as always, because he's last, you will have to wait for that greatness. So let's go ahead and start with Trey Neal. Trey, hey, what's up, bro?
What's up? How you doing?
How you doing this week?
We're bowl eligible, baby.
Why do you shake your head when you're like happy? I don't understand it. Like we're
bowl eligible.
We are. We're going bowling, baby. We're going bowling. So super excited about that. Nobra's actually podcasting from Allen's house tonight. So there's Nobra. Hey, Nobra.
Hey,
do one of those head and shoulders like hair things there. Oh, there you go. That's better. Okay. It doesn't work. You have to go faster with the headphones on. So
hold on.
Oh, there it is. Wow. Okay. All right. You got the full glory there if you're watching on YouTube. All right. Thank you, everyone. And as always, Alan, unfortunately, not as always, but unfortunately this week, Alan will not be able to join us. So you will not get the benefit of his great hair. We've been trying to get him to show it without product. And so far we've been unsuccessful. But if you check out our shorts from this weekend, you'll see Alan on there as well. And last but certainly not least, but always last, Josh Lazar with a collar, ready to go. Are we popping it this week?
Yeah, it's good enough, but I'm down. I got a good.
All right, he's popping.
I am really, really excited about this podcast, and I'm excited about everything UCF, except for the basketball game I attended. So it's going to be a good week, and it's going to be a great hour or two or 207. We'll see what happens.
Awesome. 207. That's what we're shooting for every week. So, folks, it was an exciting week for me. I got to hang out with the guys at halftime. I got to pregame with them a little bit. I didn't pregame as hard as Alan did, or Rob for that matter, because I had my daughter with me. But it was certainly a lot of fun. Started out a little light, was worried about the attendance, but it filled in pretty nicely, and it got loud. This game, I actually went and watched it back on TV, and FS1 for whatever reason actually figured out how to turn the on the field mics back on, like ESPN does and everybody else. Normally they mute it, and it sounded really, really good on the third and fourth downs. And you could tell during the game, the quarterback, we were getting in his head a little bit. There were a few penalties, especially on that fourth down stand, where they couldn't tell what was going on, and we also caused them to eat a timeout before the play clock ran out. So all in all, good showing by Knights fans after the holiday. They got to watch an exciting win. The first half was a little bit snoozy, for lack of a better word. We had some ball movement, but the second half definitely belonged to the Knights, and as such, we will be going bowling. So super excited about that. Guys, it's time for text talk. Let's talk a little text talk. So I'm going to start with Trey Neal because he looks super ready to talk about those texts right now. Trey, what text talks did you choose for this week?
Yeah, so I had a couple. It's a little dialogue between you and Rob. It was during our kicking struggles early on, and it was Rob said, "Didn't we recruit another stud kicker?" Roger was like, "Yes, but he is not ready." Rob said, "Then he's not a stud." I thought that was funny. It was pretty lighthearted in the moment. I always think, when you guys get together, I think it's pretty funny. The text y'all send to each other.
Hey, you're part of that when you choose to participate.
No, yeah. But I'm locked in, and then I started getting mad and stuff. But another random one, when I checked, it was Rob again. He was just like, "Don't fall asleep on the train. You might end up in Jamaica, Queens." Like, what in the world are y'all talking about?
I can give you that one. I would say maybe Nobra with Brooklyn on his shirt, man. He might be able to tell you that. Okay. Do you want me to explain that to you? Do you need some explanation there?
No, I was going to provide it, and so So Alan was on the bright line, a little noonered out, and he said he was at the top of his riz when he was headed down south. And
you got that, no, bro? BBB.
So we were a little bit worried about him, and Rob jumped in there to give him some good advice. And obviously, there's a good story on that. I don't advocate falling asleep on any trains in New York at all, ever,
especially inebriated.
Been there, done that. It's fine.
And so my last one was Allen, of course, and it was proud that we were bowl eligible. Again. You would have asked me 4 weeks ago if we would have been bowl eligible. I would have been. I think I was like, probably not. We're going to lose most of these games. So again, to be here 4 weeks later, get 6 wins, check it off, and the most important thing, get 15 more practices. For the young guys that have been, a lot of that gets lost. Like the guys that get redshirted, the guys that might have been, banged up, injured, they can get healthy. Show off what they got, and we might have a couple of early enrollees. I don't know exactly. But they could get a little bit of get their feet wet a little bit. So I think, being bowl eligible and getting these extra, 15 practices?
15
or days of practice? Yeah, it's huge. That's a whole, that's almost like another spring. It's another little session to kind of work on your craft for some of the older guys and get the young guys to, get ready for next year. So.
Yeah, John Walker participated in that last year, our big recruit. So anybody who signs, if the bowl game is late enough after signing day, which I believe is December 20th, they can participate in these as well. So hopefully because we've got some big time 4-stars that are supposed to be signing with us. And if we can get them on the field and started early, that's going to be great because we've got a lot of turnover this year with seniors off of this team. So that'll only help. Nobra, how about you? Did you have any text talks or I know we're kind of throwing your feet in the fire here because Alan had to take the week off.
I did. I just chose one.
Okay. Let's hear it.
It's from you. And it says, I love how they tried to lay on one of our players to slow us down, and he just bench pressed him into the air and off him.
That was hilarious. Like one of our players, like they were trying to slow us down because we were going fast, and one of our players was laying down, and one of their, and it wasn't like a cornerback. This was a big dude. I don't know if he was a linebacker or like defensive lineman, right? But he was literally just laying on there and rolling, like, and not letting him get up to try to slow down the play, and he literally just got tired of it and just bench pressed him off. And it was like he went into the air and then went off to the side. I was like, you're strong if you got a 200-300 pound guy that you're throwing off of your chest like that. I was like, okay, I'm duly impressed right now. So that was you could tell they were doing it on purpose all game, and they were just annoyed. And it got a little chippy, to be honest. Part of the game, it got real chippy. One of our guys got suplexed, which was in front of everybody, and like no call. Like, we get called for little diddly stuff, and like I am not kidding you. The guy got suplexed, and that was a 300-pound defensive lineman that got suplexed, and it's like you don't call that.
Yeah, but we lightly swipe by a quarterback, and it's a late hit. Or something like that.
Well, how it is with QBs. You can't touch a QB.
Yeah, I know.
And then on that same play, they reviewed it which was another thing that kept slowing down this game. This game was only 3 hours long, but it felt longer because they kept reviewing all these plays. And one of them was John Walker, I think is the play that you were talking about, where he kind of pushed off on the quarterback and the quarterback sold it a little bit. That was a little flop city. I mean, that guy's like 6'5", 230, 240 pounds. You don't just fly off unless John Walker's Superman, but they tried to get him on targeting or review for targeting. And then I was like, are you serious right now? Like Big 12 refs? Like what's going on?
It was bad. At some point in the first half, maybe in the text talk, or maybe it was in person, like Texas Tech was iffy, right? We've had other games that were kind of iffy when it came to what's happening with the referees.
Texas Tech was not iffy. That was terrible.
I'm being nice. It's just that first half. I'm like, what the heck is going on? But the second half was better, so we got there.
Yeah. All right. That was Nobra's text talk. What about you, Josh Lazar? What did you have for this week?
So I got two pretty quick ones. One was a pretty subtle one. That's the way to start the second half. I really think the second half of that game, that first couple of series, was what changed the dynamic both in the stands and on the field. And the beginning of the second half was a very beautiful. I'll say that. I also, depending on when you're watching or listening to this, if you listen to us when this comes out, it'll probably be around the same day as I'm throwing up some of these shorts that I recorded during the game. So I always, when I'm at the game, I try to record a couple of fans from our own, UCF fans. And I try to find some opposing fans. Did that in Oklahoma too. Give us some game scores and maybe some fun. So the most amazing thing happened, it's the odds of this are I don't know, 1,000,000 to 1. I don't know what it is. It's amazing. So my text was, I'm in Lakeland at a Twisty Treat. No cap. I saw one of the Houston fans I interviewed in the IOA Plaza, and I went back and looked at it. It was. So I actually didn't have to leave the game too early, which is great because it was a 3 hour and 5 minute game, which we usually don't have games that short. But I had to go to Lakeland for a family thing. And on the way back, I'm talking, this is like 7 at night, something like 4 hours after the game is over. I'm at this Twisty Treat because we wanted dessert after dinner. And I'm sitting there and I see two people in red. I'm like, and I talked about me being at the game or whatever. It's like, I thought, were you the guy that interviewed me about a score or something? And I'm like, what? And this is an older couple. And when I look back and that was probably me. And I looked at my phone and it was them. And part of my mind was, let's do a post interview at this Twisty Treat. And the other part of my mind was, my wife and kid are here and this would be kind of weird. So, and to put it all in perspective, we were taking photos and we were all in matching pajamas. So that would have been really great for the gram. So that was very odd. I don't think that'll ever happen again.
Probably not, Josh. But Twisty Treat is a popular place, so I could understand that. So Twisty Treat, if you want to give us some free coupons for ice cream, I will say Twisty Treat throughout the show because Twisty Treat ice cream is good. Jeremiah's, however,
let's do a hashtag on Twisty Treat on this one.
Hashtag Twisty Treat, and then follow that up with hashtag Jeremiah's because I love me some Jeremiah's too.
Jeremy, get us some ice cream and a franchise maybe if you have some time.
Yeah. So, all right. So I think we're good with text talk this week. That was one of our lighter text talks. I think we were up and yelling and screaming and cheering because we were all in the stadium. Rob, if you watched the short at halftime, willed us to win with his White Claw wishes, but he was definitely feeling things at the half. So it was a lot of fun this game. I was in a different section than what I normally am because I got some tickets from somebody else in the cabana as usual. I usually have my seats at the 50-yard line in 228B, but I was in 228A this time. And the people around me were awesome. It was a lot of fun. Everybody was up. People were loud. And it was exciting. And we definitely got into Houston's head. So now that we got text talk over with, let's actually talk about the game. So UCF for Nobra again is helping us with the tags here for each one of our sections. And his section this week, week 13, dominating the Cougars. And he said it just like that when he wrote it too, I promise. But UCF is bowl eligible for the 8th consecutive season, which, by the way, is the longest bowl streak in Florida for all Florida teams. So that includes FSU, Florida, the Cows, FAU, FIU, Florida Gulf Coast, whoever else. We are the longest bowl streak in Florida, taking the place of FSU, which had it previously. And I know Alan kind of put the show notes together for us this week, and he said, thoughts on what bowl game we may play in, and then do we prefer a P5 versus P4 versus G6? So, guys, I'm going to go around the horn. Trey, what do you think? Well, actually, let me start off this time. I'm going to go against the grain and go with Josh Lazar because he did a little research on this week. So why don't you start off and kind of explain what our options are, where you think we may land, and whether you're happy with it or not.
Muted.
Josh,
wow, nothing to say.
That was good.
You got right in there, champ.
I wanted to have a pregnant pause, and you wouldn't let me. I love it.
It was pregnant. It was about 9 months, dude.
I know. That's a full term pause. It's wonderful. So here's what we have. So of the teams that are 6-6 and above, there are us, of course, Kansas, Texas Tech, West Virginia, Kansas State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Texas. So we have 9 teams that are eligible. Not eligible, every other team that came into this conference with us, and TCU, amazingly enough, and Baylor, because they got all 3 wins, and unfortunately, we all know which one of those were. So we have 9 teams, and then this year we have, we have 12 we have 8 guaranteed bowl partners for the Big 12, which is interesting because if you look at some of the other conferences, Sun Belt and some of the G6, if you will, they only have 1 or 2 or 3 guaranteed bowl partners, which is going to probably end up being a theme over time. So we have either the college football playoff at large or the Sugar Bowl. If you get in the CFP, great. Otherwise, the winner of the game in Arlington will be at the Sugar Bowl. Then we have the Alamo, Valero Alamo, Pop-Tart, Taxac, Texas, AutoZone Liberty, guaranteed rate, one of the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowls or the Surf Pro First Responder Bowl, and the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. Okay, those are the 8 bowl games we can go to. Now, and that's the order. The order is from top to bottom. So Independence Bowl chooses number 8. So there's been a lot of talk about this on message boards and on X, formerly known as Twitter, and all of that. And I've seen a lot of other analysts pick basically either the ESPN Events Bowls, which means we would be of the bowl partners not selected, and we'll go into the, I believe, 17 different bowls of the, quote, ESPN Events Bowls. That's the Cure Bowl, Gasparilla, a bunch of those that we've been to before. And some people are thinking we're probably first responder, armed forces, whichever one gets to pick, or independence. That's what I've seen across the board.
Why don't you talk about who the bowl opponents would be drawn from as well?
Sure. So let me go to one of those because we talked about that a little bit in our notes. There is there are people saying that perhaps we might get to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is here in Orlando, Florida. And that's Big 12 versus ACC. And the idea there is that it would be UCF versus Miami.
Ooh, please.
I would absolutely love that. But here's the thing. They pick an order. The top 3 teams right now that are currently ranked are Texas, Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma. And one of those three are going to be in the Sugar Bowl. So you have to tell me Orlando is not going to pick Texas, Oklahoma State, or Oklahoma to come here. I just don't see that happening. And I think Oklahoma was here last year, if I remember correctly, at that bowl game. So maybe, but I will tell you, UCF versus Miami would sell 72,000 tickets. And I think there would be a lot more hotel rooms than people think, because while there are a lot of Miami and UCF fans in town, there are a lot that are not. So I think that would be absolutely wonderful. But you have to think of that bowl team, that the bowl staff not picking probably Oklahoma, and I'm hoping Texas if Oklahoma State wins the championship. So I just don't see that happening. So let's go further down. You have if that happens, then the bowl partners will probably pass down to that 7th or 8th. I mean, everything else is pretty much in the. You have what do we have? We have Liberty Bowl in Memphis, who've been there before. Alamo in Texas, Texas Bowl in Houston, Guarantee Rate Bowl in Arizona. You have basically all of these bowls in either Arizona or in Texas. They're probably going to pick the Kansases, the Kansas States, the shorter travel distance. I think we're going to fall between 7, 8, or ESPN. So 7 would be Armed Forces or the First Responder Bowl. Both are Big 12 versus Group of 6, AAC or CUSA on both. There could be an ACC matchup in First Responder. I didn't dig deep into that yet. I don't. Personal opinion, don't think that happens, but it's possible because they're both in Texas. Now, the Independence Bowl, the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl, they spent enough money, they can get their name, is in Shreveport. And that's between the Big 12 and the Pac-12. So if you look at the order of which we're picking and the teams that will be left, more than likely, it's going to be between us and either probably Kansas, maybe West Virginia. That's probably where I'm thinking. Texas Tech probably is going to find its way into a Texas-based game. That might be number 7. I don't know. Do we get picked over some of those others? That's really going to be the question, because I just don't think the Miami UCF thing happens. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think it happens. So I've been predicting UCF versus Cal in the Tech Independence Bowl the night we play that game. And now that we're seeing some of the other analysts looking at this, I'm not the only one who's seeing that. But I'd say more people are seeing us in Independence or one of the Texas Fort Worth Dallas Bowls, Armed Forces or First Responder. I think from the national pundits, it's about 3 that are picking us versus dumping someone to ESP events. And there's a couple of us picking us to go to the Cure Bowl or the Gasparilla Bowl. So that's basically everything I've seen so far and some thoughts about that.
All right. So my thought is, and I'll say the same thing as I said last week, please don't put us in a G6 bowl, right? We just got out of the AAC. We just played Cincinnati and Houston. That's enough AAC people. And definitely don't put us with CUSA. They are inviting Delaware for 2025. I mean, that's the conference that we're dealing with right now with
Joe Biden will love that.
Yeah. Roger, you're starting to get a little big time, huh?
Oh, I'm big timing. Bro, we deserve that. I'm big timing them like hardcore.
Fresh.
Hey, listen, CUSA, think about this. The AAC, a lot of those teams came from CUSA, right? Mm-hmm. So you had, and even like Cincinnati, before they went to the Big East, they were a CUSA team. Memphis, UCF, ECU when they were good, SMU. Like, those were the CUSA teams, like actual brand names. I mean, at that time, Memphis had some runs and whatever. I mean, we beat them 14 times in a row, but, we ain't talking about that. But ECU was good. They weren't too far removed from being in a quote unquote BCS bowl, right? So you go from that to like Western Kentucky and Delaware, and Western Kentucky's had good runs, but they're playing against Delaware and UTEP and like whoever, right? That is not the same CUSA.
UCF versus Jacksonville State. I mean, first ever bowl game. You don't think that's going to be fun?
No. And then JMU, right? So JMU just got bowl eligible. They were in their first 2 years. They both years, the first year and the second year, won enough games to play, but they were ineligible because of the NCAA rules. And it turns out there were not enough 6-6 teams available to fill all the bowls. So they got bumped up, and they're actually going to get a chance to play in a bowl. So good for them, honestly. But that's another team I don't want to play. So, look, we've done our time in the G6. We don't I don't think UCF fans get up for that. You know what I mean? They just don't, only because we just got out of the G6. So quit scheduling us with teams that we've played quite a bit in the past. We want to play P5 teams. We're in a P5 league. We don't want to play Arkansas State again in the Cure Bowl. Right? So if I'm just looking at it from a bowl perspective, if they want us to travel, give us someone who's at least respectable, someone we haven't played before. That was the whole idea behind bowls anyway, was to play teams from other conferences when it first started as an exhibition game that you wouldn't normally play because they're not in your league. So that's how I feel about it. I still do think we end up with a G6 team of some sort, and based on your analysis, I won't call it expert, but I'll call it analysis. It looks like we will end up playing a G6 team anyway. So, Josh, what are your thoughts on P5 versus G6, or P4 versus G6?
I concur. I mean, unless we get to the Shreveport, and frankly, let's be fair, that's like talking about Texarkana. Shreveport is darn near Texas. It's not Texas. It's in Louisiana. But you could probably it's probably like 30, 50 minutes from the border. It's not what we're talking Lafayette or Baton Rouge. So this is not, there's no, other than the Pop-Tart Bowl, there's no drivable bowl game unless you're going 14 hours to Shreveport. That's the closest you got, maybe 13:30 if you're heavy on the gas. So or electric. Yeah, right. There's just
electric. No electric car will get you 14-hour drive, bro.
I could probably get there in 2 charges. But anyway, the reality is
now you just became a 16-hour drive.
I charge in about 25 minutes or less. Same about as your gas. We can get into electric gas in a whole nother podcast, but it takes you longer to get a gas tank and eat lunch than it does for me to charge and get lunch. But anyway, the ending point is every fan is probably going to have to fly, and you're probably going to be flying into Texas. I mean, Shreveport's going to be interesting. I'm sure there will be some Allegiant or Spirit direct flights. I haven't looked that far, but honestly, for travel purposes, it might be better if we get a G6 in Dallas or Fort Worth, because I mean, those are all, very easy to fly to destinations. But yeah, I only see us getting a P4, or I'd say P5, because what is Pac-12 at this point? I only see us getting a P5, P4 type of team if we're relatively lucky. But this is what I will say, and shout out to UCF fans. The reason I think we have a shot of getting something a little bit better than maybe other existing Hateful Eight or whatever you want to call them teams is because we've traveled the bowl games really, really well over the years.
Look at it this way: we barely lost to Texas Tech, right?
Yeah.
And Texas Tech right now, they'll probably give them the home, the leftover 8. Nod, wink, wink. Even though they lost their game against Texas, so it's like, why can't the Citrus Bowl do the same for us? Like, I don't understand that. Like, you would think
You think Florida Citrus Sports is going to throw us a bone? What are you smoking?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that at all. But I do think it would be better for them, and they'd fill the stadium more, and they'd have more people traveling. Like it's in their interest too. And Steve Hogan, who is the bowl president or whatever they call it, isn't he a UCF alum?
Sure. Yes, he is. Listen, if Oklahoma State wins this football game, and I would love Oklahoma State to win the football game for multiple reasons, since we shellacked them. If Oklahoma State wins this football game, Texas is coming to Orlando more than likely. Maybe they get past one, but I don't know if the Pop-Tart Bowl wants Oklahoma again. I got to research that, but I swear where I live in downtown that Oklahoma was practicing at Boone High School last year. So I'm pretty sure it was last year. Maybe it was 2 years ago, but yeah, it's really, I just don't, I don't see us getting any bowl other than Independence. I don't know why they would fly us up to Dallas or Fort Worth and not take like Texas Tech. Texas Tech probably has one of those in the bag, to be honest. I don't think anyone above them is taking Texas Tech. No, nothing wrong with the Red Raiders or anyone from Lubbock. I just logistically, I think they're going to keep them there, and that really leaves us in either Kansas or I don't know. I think West Virginia is going to go earlier. I think Kansas State is going to go earlier. I think it's between us and Kansas, and I think maybe Kansas is a good overall record. I don't know. It's what it is. All I'll say is that I have a feeling we're going to go to a bowl game we're not going to be happy about. Although, if we were the 8th team in the Sun Belt, which got like 12 teams, I think, in this year, we'd also be in a game we don't like. So it's what it is.
All right, awesome. So, Trey, what are your thoughts on that real quickly? And we'll move back to the game. I just do have to shout out Nobra here. The Big LeBowlski was very creative there, sir.
Yes, I like that.
I mean,
thank you.
I would love to play Miami. I think, just again, in-state rivalries, I think that's always fun. I think that, like you guys said, it'd get a great showing. We'd probably, if you put it in Orlando or anywhere, it's going to sell out because the fans are right here. Fans always love to see that kind of game. And I think it'd sell out. But sadly, again, the bowl games reward winning. When you're 6-6, and we know from past experiences, when you win a lot of games, you get the big bowls. And there's some where it's like, they have conference time.
Little humble brag there, Trey, huh?
No, but I mean,
you're right.
That's just how it is. There's some conference tie-ins for like the New Year's 6 ones, but for the most part, if you win a lot of games, you're going to go get the bigger bowls, and that's just I've seen obviously a season with no bowl. I've seen a season where we won 8-9 games, went to a bowl, and then I've seen where we go to a New Year's 6 bowl. And it's very different. How they take care of you, the media, the pageantry of it. It's very different for each of them. So I mean, when you win 6 games, you can't really expect.
By the way, what did you get at the bowl, at the Peach Bowl? Like, what was your prize for participating?
We got we were able to choose
money.
Between. Yeah, we were able to.
Sure, you didn't get money, because if you're in the SEC, people would be throwing you some handshakes.
Yeah, no money. We got a stipend to take care of us because I think we were up there for a week or about.
Yeah.
But we got to choose.
How much was the stipend? Like, how much are they dropping?
I don't remember. That was
like $75 a day, or you don't remember because you shouldn't remember.
No, I really don't remember. But I mean, they took care of us. You don't have to pay for anything. You don't have to really pay for food. I mean, we got so much Chick-fil-A. We got and we were in Atlanta, so there was Waffle Houses, and we were downtown, so there was a lot of food places to go. But our bowl gift, we were able to choose between it was a lot. We had like a pamphlet of different things. So you had like probably, just for example, you had 10 points. And some things cost 1 point, some things cost 5 points. And I think the most was like 8. So I got the all black like recliner chair, electric recliner chair, for mine. There were things like I think it was a PlayStation or Xbox. Like it was a lot. Versus that was the Peach Bowl versus like when we went to, I forgot the one in Tampa.
Gasparilla.
No, it was at the
oh god,
it was Bitcoin. Drop. It was the Bitcoin Bowl.
Hey, I got a story about the Bitcoin Bowl.
I do too. You might see it coming up later in your fun facts.
Oh, yeah, okay. like that one we didn't get that opportunity of it, but we still got taken care of. So again, you win, you know, you get the better pick of the litter. When you barely squeak in, you just kind of here you go. This is the leftover. So
yeah, you get the pick of the litter box is what you get.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. So that's our bowl analysis. Look, I'm just excited. We talked last week about the game and what it meant for the season. If we won and went to the bowl game, you know, if we finish 7-6, we finished 7-6. It's a successful season. As Trey said, I think the most valuable thing out of all of it is going to be the bowl practices. Who knows who's going to be on the roster this week? Gus is going to be talking with the players and trying to negotiate a roster off of his NIL dollars. So not even joking. That's what's happening this week. Yeah. I can tell you when all this stuff broke, I know a certain coach for a certain FBS team that I met for cigars when he was up here a couple of years ago for conference meetings during spring meetings. And like literally all he was doing the whole time was negotiating with someone from his team on this player's NIL offer. So it's the first week of this is going to be, because this is when people start exploring these offers, right? Because they can transfer. I don't remember if it's the 30th when the window opens, but they can transfer. So all these negotiations are happening now. Gus will spend this first week trying to figure out, okay, and you heard him talk about it in his press conferences, you know, maintain and keep as many of the players as they possibly can for this week and kind of figure out where everybody's head's at. You know, RJ Harvey, is he going to go to the NFL, which I think he should, or is he going to entertain somebody like Miami who's going to drop a bag on him and say, hey, for your final year? Because if he goes undrafted, right, if he's an undrafted free agent, he's actually better off playing another year in college football and getting a bag
money-wise,
pay-wise, than going and you know, if he doesn't make the 52-man roster, he's not going to be making more money than he would with NIL. So those negotiations are going on this week. Once that happens, then they'll shift focus again. We do have some folks that are on official visits this weekend as well. There's a DT that just recently decommitted. I think it was Georgia Tech or something like that. He's a big 3-star, number 26 defensive tackle in the country, will be on campus this weekend. So there's a lot of different things that are happening during this week, but the first week after the last game is always about negotiating those terms for NIL. I mean, basically, it's like the NFL free agency period or the NBA free agency period right now. And then once that's settled out, they'll focus on the new recruits that they're bringing in. And you got bowl prep somewhere around there whenever the conference championships are decided next week. Yes, all that for $1. All right. We call that the $1 holler. That's what that's called. Which, by the way, Alec Holler, I got to hang out with him a little bit after the game on the field, and it was awesome. So, all right, going back to the game, we'll move back off. Yep, back to dominating the Cougars. So, UCF's offense, RJ Harvey rushes for another 100-plus yard game for the 6th time in the last 7, which is ridiculous for a running back in the P5. JRP rated a top 10 QB this week by PFF. This was another game where he was on point in the air. You know, there were a lot of questions from the fan base after last season. Trey, you mentioned this last week too. You know, can he fix his mechanics? Can he do the things he needs to do through the air, and he's proven that he has. And he was stellar. He moved out of the pocket. One of the comments I had in my text thread this week was JRP looked a lot faster this week. He's way, way, way better than he's still wearing the brace, but he's still way, way, way better. He trusts it a lot more, and he's physically better. And it was funny. You watch them on the field and it goes by in a blur and it's fast, but when I already saw it, dude. So, when you're watching it back on TV, it's amazing how fast him, X, we were just way faster than their entire defense. We talked about size last week. Houston's still not a full P5 roster. They've got some big guys, but you can tell what we can do with our speed and out talenting people when we've got that kind of size. UCF gained 476 yards. The crazy thing about that in this game is two things. One, we did 223 yards on the ground and 253 through the air. So this is the closest I think we got to a true 50-50 balance that we've had all year. We had 400 yards by 9:03 left in the third. So if we had 476 total, what does that tell you? That means that we were just trying to eat clock. And that tells you we could have put a lot more points on the board than we did, irrespective of Boomer's broken performance. We'll talk about that in a bit. We averaged another crazy stat now to end the season. We averaged 32.5 points per game versus last year was 32.9. So very little drop off playing in a P5 league versus the AAC. And Xavier Townsend, we talked about that coming out of the half, right? That pass and that quick touchdown out of the half. But earlier on, for the second touchdown, Xavier Townsend just willed that TD. He got that short pass and he willed that TD this week, and it really got our guys going. So, when we're talking about overall in the game, we were talking about the offense last week and, or in Texas Tech and how they didn't show up and all that other stuff. The offense had some opportunities where they could have stalled and they didn't. They went out there, and what I saw was, whether it be JRP or X doing his thing, JRP, a lot of those runs, it was just like, I'm not going to let us get stalled on this drive. I'm just going to go out and do this, and still slid. So I was very, very happy to see that.
He didn't jump in anyone's arms this week.
No Simba moments, right? No Simba moments this week.
But to your point, I think that's one of the bigger things that we're missing in that 5-game streak. I'm just going to take it on my shoulders, and love Timmy, but he couldn't do it. He just couldn't.
Well, Timmy tried, but Timmy's answer to that was to run backwards, not run forward for 30 yards and then throw it to the line of scrimmage. Timmy has a huge arm. He just didn't get rid of the ball fast enough. And those are coachable things, right? He didn't get rid of the ball, and throw it away. He would sit there and he would just run for 30 yards and try to make something happen. And, sometimes it worked, but more often than not, it didn't. It's just not smart and efficient football.
But you're 100% right. But it's those type of moments that we really missed when JRP wasn't available. And I do think, my prediction for the year was 8-4. With a healthy JRP, hindsight being 2020, I think it might have been 9-3. Like we definitely would have won a couple other games if he was 100% healthy. But again, we're where we're at. We're 6-6, which still, with all of the things that happened, both injury wise and within the games themselves, we'll talk about our ratings for the year, but not that bad, not great, but not that bad, right?
Yeah, I think the offense, just to start off, JRP is definitely, he's about 95%. When I went back and watched, there's
actually 95%, not like 3 games ago when he said he was 95%.
No, yeah, he's actually 95%. His straight line movement he can get back to his top speed straight line. It's more so he can't really stick hard in his right knee, which that could be due to the brace. That could be just still kind of iffy on it. But as far as running and just playing without thinking, he's there. Like you said, we missed it because a lot of plays that weren't called when he came back, we see them now. Specifically, the quarterback draw. That is a great play, especially when teams they're not really ready for it because he's so explosive. He can get 10 yards before he's even close to getting touched. And then the read option dynamic, we've seen it the last few weeks. Him pulling it, being able to run, pulling it to throw, and just making plays when the play breaks down. That's the thing we missed the most during that 5-game stretch. And like you said, Roger, it's not like Timmy isn't athletic or he doesn't have a strong arm. It's just JRP when the play breaks down is let me run forward. Timmy when the play breaks down is let me run backwards, which pros and cons to both. But this offense needed just take the yards and let's live to play another day, not try to make something, happen. And I think that was key.
Yeah, and what you've seen is a few things have disappeared from our playbook. So the jet sweep, not there anymore. We used to pitch quite a bit. We used to use the jet sweep quite a bit, and we try to use the screen a lot more because we were making up for that option that we had in the backfield, the 3-headed monster, right? Because you had JRP that now can pass, and he's passing fairly accurately most of the time.
Yeah, he's very efficient. And he hasn't been helped out by his receivers too either. There's been
no
easy drops.
Well, I think it's like 5 or 6 of his picks. He's got 8 picks for the year.
Are drops.
Drops. Yes, it bounced off the receiver, tip drill type, picks. So he's a lot more efficient even than what his numbers show. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what you were seeing, specifically, you were pointing out the pull, right? So when that defender, when they're blitzing and they're crashing down, they have to pick whether they're going to play the running back or they're going to play JRP. And JRP, he's gotten really, really good at knowing when to pull and when to go. So if you're a defender, you have to pick your poison, like we talk about. And if you pick wrong, he can make you pay because he's got his wheels back. Yep. And that's a huge difference in the game. And what that also does is it makes you hesitate. So all those guys that are sitting back there, you're either going to play the pass or you're going to play the running back. Well, now you've got JRP back there with all that motion that goes on back there, right? And it could be a handoff. And this, guys, I know we talk about Gus's crazy plays in tight situations. Part of the reason Gus does those plays is so it breaks up what that motion means. And what I mean by that is the motion, we have tendencies on that motion. If we start throwing flea flickers in there or a triple flea flicker that we had going on in this game, or like randomly, it was like 3 people touched the ball before we passed, right? Yeah. The reason he does that is to keep them guessing. Where we argue with it is when it's tight game situations and then we start pulling that stuff out. Yeah. It's one thing when we got a lot of time on the clock. It's another thing when it's like a crucial thing and you're trying to outsmart the defense. So, and
there's so many layers, like just those two, the part that you just talked about, like if you don't play JRP, if you hesitate and play either one of them wrong, whereas RJ Harvey or JRP, you can pay. There's so many layers from the offense that you can build off just that simple play, which that's kind of what college football is trending to, and even a lot of the NFL is just we call it RPO, run pass option,
right?
Because that's just the run option. There's so many where you can bring Alec Holler, he can pretend to block, leak out into the flat. He could pretend to block, and
he had 5 catches this game.
Yeah, and he could pretend to block and go straight up down the middle of the field. You see so many of the routes by the receivers. Like there's so many options, and the dynamic of the offense was built so much about having a mobile quarterback. And I even said that, to Roger off air, before we talking in the text chat. I'm just like, I didn't realize how much of the offense, because what did we all complain about last year? JRP doesn't drop back and throw the ball enough. He doesn't drop back and do all these, different drop back concepts, which, and looking back now, he doesn't really need to do that because if he has his legs, the offense is so explosive, so dynamic. You don't necessarily need to do it because it's already hard enough to stop all these RPOs, stop his legs, stop these options. So,
well, I mean, you experienced it. You played against Greg Ward.
Yeah, and it was nothing like this either. It was more just run, hand it off, or he would take off and run, and that was already hard enough to stop that. Now with all these different layers, and that was 10 years ago. So imagine 10 years of figuring out, okay, we can get away with this, we can do this. Like now, this is like the 3.0, 4.0 version of that offense, and and with the just as good of an athlete, probably a better athlete. And that's the thing that I think I didn't realize was just how much his legs meant in this offense and him being able to threaten the defense. Because we talked about it, but we wanted to see him take that step passing, which he has taken that step passing as well. I mean, you've seen the drop back throws. He's pretty good this year, even though some of the the interceptions might not show. But like you talked about, those are 5 or 6 of them off of tips from our receivers dropping the ball. But again, I didn't think the offense was so tailored to JRP's ability to move. And I think now we're starting to see, I think we saw it early in the year. But I think now that he's getting back healthy, we can see, like you said, we had 400 and some yards with 9 minutes left in the third quarter. You're talking probably 500, 600 yards of football if Gus keeps the pedal. I think he was just trying to keep everybody healthy, keep it safe, and just get out of there with the win.
I don't even think he was doing that. I think he was just trying to run down the clock because he saw that here's the flip side of this. The defense kept them in check. They were 1 for 10 on third downs. Yeah. 1 for 10. They played well against third downs last week too, right?
Yeah.
The difference was they got them on fourth downs.
Yeah. and we did a pretty good job this week, stopping the run. And I've been harping on that a lot this year. Because I think the way our team is built, we're so good. We're very good covering. We're very good, like you said, normally in the pass game, because that's where we have very good corners. We're starting to see the development of our safeties, our young guys, Braden Marshall, Henderson, Nakai Martinez is blossoming. I think if we can stop the run, you can kind of let those guys shine and we can get off the field. Where we kind of have the issues with stopping the run. Again, I think when you put together a game like this, I also think Houston, some of the decisions they made this game, just going back and watching it, I don't know what Dan Holgerson was thinking.
Well, he was thinking he wasn't going to get fired, but he did anyway.
Yeah.
Which got scalped. The Scully got scalped again.
Yeah, which it's again. Watching the game, he made some very questionable decisions because his quarterback didn't play that bad. He played pretty well. He moved the ball, but I don't know. It was bad play calling. But again, the defense showed up. Offense was very efficient, JRP efficient. We could run the ball, we could throw it. When we talked about it all year.
You've got the running threat. Also, it wasn't just Johnny Richardson going to the sidelines. RJ Harvey mixed it up a little bit this week too. Yep. He was breaking him out to the sideline as well, which really hurts because they were you even heard the commenters talking about it, how they were not keeping containment on the edges. So when you have that, you have JRP who can pull it. And we have a vertical threat, right? So we have a vertical threat in Kobe Hudson, who caught 9 passes. His previous best was 8 passes, 9 passes for 98 yards. Javon Baker hauled in 2 for 59 yards. Alec Holler, 5 for 44, and Xavier Townsend, 5 for 42. Those guys are in the middle of the field, right? Those guys are the short to mid-range passers or receivers.
Yep.
No, not catchers. We're not going back to Allen's technical terms from last week. So the throwers and the catchers, the throwers and the catchers.
The throwers are doing great this week.
Yeah, the throwers, they were excellent. Alan, sorry, man, you missed out on the pod this week, so we got to throw a little salt in there. That being said, Xavier Townsend. So you've got 2 running threats in the backfield. You've got a mobile passer. You've got 2 guys that can make you pay, either going towards the inside right? So, and most of the time they're going to go out to the edges for quick hitters, right? Alec Holler's not really going to lose anybody unless he can run somebody over, right? If they've only got one a linebacker on him or something. However, with X, he can make you miss, and if he gets in space, it's over with, right? And so they're going to take care of the mid range, and then you've got two guys streaking down the field that. And Kobe tried to do another toe tap sideline this week. It didn't happen, but he had a great game. There's not a lot, and this is why you're seeing these silly numbers on offense. Is we've got a ton of weapons. I mean, just a ton, a litany of weapons. Now, we have a lot of seniors, and we have NIL to worry about this week. But offensively, this team finally got it together where we expected them to be all year long, right? Yep. So I see a lot of smirks, so I'm going to check out the private chat while we're on there. Yes, two guys streaking down the field. Yes, and that is a heck of a stat or a strategy, if that's what you meant, Nobra.
We talked about it earlier. Just when you have all the threats working, everybody's touching the ball. You can't. Well, pause.
Pause.
You can't. You can't dictate coverage to one guy. You can't just roll coverage or try to stop one person because there's so many different dynamics to the offense. So when you see it like this, it's really unguardable.
Yeah. So if Nobra being funny in the private chat was being real about the streakers being a bold strategy, yes, I imagine if there were actual streakers on the field, most of the players and defensive players would be running away from them. So I think that might be an interesting, although brief, strategy.
Yeah. I will say just to hammer it home a little bit, and then I'm sure we'll move on. When Pittman and X are out there and doing some work, that's when it becomes even more dangerous because you already know 1 and 2 are going to do their thing for the most part. And once you get that third or fourth option where you know there might be something solid, Alec Holler as well, right? That once you get something else, then you're like, okay, well, we don't want to go one-on-one.
Yep.
We don't want to stack the box. What are we going to do? And I think that's when you saw Pittman, you saw Holler, you've seen a couple other people get. I know X only had the one, but it was a big one. When you get that going, then it becomes just this, choose. Especially if he can run.
But even with X, right? He didn't break any of those loose. They were like 4 or 5 yards, but that's basically like a running play, and you're still moving the ball. And at the end of the day, if you're getting 4 to 5 yards per play, then three downs, you've got your first down. And on top of that,
you have to make an adjustment.
Exactly. And on top of that, if you're doing that, you're pulling people out of the box.
Yep. Nobody will let you just throw 5-yard quick plays every play. They will adjust, and especially if you just keep, hit them for 5 yards, and you go back to somebody, hit them again for 5 yards, and you keep moving the chains. Defensive coordinators and players, they get frustrated. They're like, all right, let's go do this. That's when you pivot to something else. And I think that's the dynamic we've wanted to see all year.
Offensively, most teams don't have the weapons that we have.
Yep.
Right. And so what they're trying to do is create matchups through motion, right?
Yep.
Or play design. So with us, you don't have that option. It's just a question of what the defense is going to give you and going to the place that's going to give you the best.
Take what the defense gives you.
Exactly. So that's a great place to be offensively, and why you see 5, 6, 100-yard games. This was a top 10 offense, still is. All right. Defensively, we haven't really talked about it. Held Houston to under 100 yards rushing, limited them to 1 and 10 on third downs. Here's another crazy thing. As much as we've been lamenting the defense, they averaged 17 points per game coming into this game and averaged 16 points per game in the last 4 games. So if you're averaging 16 points per game, and the other ones weren't blowouts, it was like 25, 26 points, you're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah.
And
for those 4 we did, right? It kind of goes hand in hand, right? I will tell you, it's just so weird because we had this glut in the middle where we didn't have everyone healthy, and that's including Barber and JRP and whatever. And you can see that just
Kobe hasn't. He's had a hammy issue the last 2 or 3 weeks.
But the first three, last four, I mean, minus one, we'll say iffy game, right? When everyone was back, people were doing well. And this is not to say that if you put all those people healthy throughout the year, which is not realistic, but if you do, I'm not saying we win those 5 games in the middle. But I don't think we're going to blow it out by Kansas. Right?
It looks a lot better.
It looks a lot better. Yeah.
Well, that's where the depth of the P5 that we were talking about and being able to recruit on P5 level and having that depth. We've got a lot of good players. We don't have the depth to go behind them. Gerard Wilson was playing really, really well. He's been out for the past 2 games. There's a lot of guys that are banged up, nicked up. And Trey, you can attest to this. How many players are out there going up, nicked up this late in the season? When you get to game 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, you're nicked up after week 1 for the most part. You still feel good. Once you get to week 2, 3, you start getting nicked up. You start feeling, your back might get a little bit tight, hamstrings start to hurt. If you roll an ankle, it starts to linger. You have all those bumps and bruises that you're trying to get healthy for game day. And once you go to sleep on Saturday night, whenever you play, you're hurting. And especially Sunday. So it's more just maintenance treatment. That's all you're doing. You're trying to stay, because you're never going to be 100%. I mean, I think you're 100% literally the first play you play. After that, you're trying to stay at 98. You're trying to get to week 3 or 4 at 95. And you're just trying to stay maintenance at those levels as the season progresses. But now again, we're going into
all that.
We're not playing. Oh, go ahead. We're not playing a conference championship, sadly. But we are playing a bowl game, so these next few weeks, guys are going to get back healthy. They're going to – those nicks and bumps, you might not get to 100%, but if you're at 85, you could get to 90, 95, which is the best you probably felt since the beginning of the year.
So in addition to all of that, Jason Johnson eclipsed 100 tackles again this year at linebacker, so that's 2 years in a row he's done that. Lee Hunter, number 1 defensive tackle in the country for tackles and tackles for losses. So not just tackles, but tackles and tackles for losses. He had 63 and 67 respectively for that. Malachi Lawrence, he had another sack plus 2 tackles for a loss. They had a few more sacks that they just barely missed out on. Drop, he had a sack this game as well. So quick question for you guys. Is Malachi Lawrence the breakout player of this year defensively? All right, a lot of silence.
I think so. But I guess
over Walker?
What you mean by breakout. Because
so breakout meaning having the most impact. Like I think Walker stuffs gaps, but he hasn't taken that next step where he's taking over a game yet. Like he's already where a junior would be defensive tackle, but he's not doing well. He's
not a game changer yet. I think that's what it is. I think he's a good player.
Lee Hunter affects games.
Yeah,
right? Walker's not there yet.
Looking back at this season, Lee Hunter was probably the most important part of our run defense key. Ricky Barber, those guys are the game wreckers. Malachi Lawrence has been flashing as a game wrecker. I don't think John Walker is that. So I guess you're right in the sense that I think that he probably would be the most. What are we saying? Not most valuable.
Breakout player.
Breakout player. Yeah. He's probably the breakout guy, I think. Now, next year, we're going to expect a lot. Probably lose Morris Brash. He's going to have to come in and continue.
Well, we are going to lose. We are going to lose Morris Brash. He's done.
The thing is, what I've learned, it's easy to be great in that role where you're coming in for one job. Like, you're coming in to go get the quarterback. Mm-hmm. When you have to do it every play, when you have to go you're going to be wear and tear. If he can keep it up, he's going to be special. But you don't want to see that dip because he's going to be relied on more. He's going to be the next guy up. He's going to have to play a lot more snaps. Does that affect him? That's why we always talk about conditioning is huge, because you can't just be a specialty player on defense. You can, but that doesn't help you enough. You got to be able to make plays and be able to play all the time, a lot of snaps. So,
Malachi Lawrence, I mean, you saw him transition with regard to his time versus Josh Solskjaer towards the end of the year, right? Another one, Braden Marshall. You saw him start to get thinking in there, and he played great against the run. He was also great against the out. He's going to be a star. That's going to be next year's. How do we keep him in the NIL sweepstakes? He's a star. And remember, we were in it with North Carolina, and he pulled that balloon stunt where he had all the blue balloons, and everybody thought he was going to North Carolina. And his announcement, and then he pulled the UCF balloons out of the bottom. It's going to be really, really interesting. So hopefully we can lean on those hometown heroes to stay home for a little bit less if we can be competitive. All right, Boomer, we mentioned it earlier, struggled again. He missed, I think it was 2 field goals and 2 extra points.
One got blocked, and then one he missed.
Well, they were all pretty much blocked. All of them were tipped because, I mean, one of them, he kicked it right into the chest of one of the defenders.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on, man. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's
his leg might be wearing out. Yeah, honestly, because he's doing kickoff duty this year. He didn't do that last year. It's getting towards the end of the season. His leg might be wearing out. I mean, think about it. We're as many points as we're scoring. We're booting like 7-8 long kickoffs at least each game. That wears on a kicker who's not used to that.
Yeah, it definitely does.
But his angle was low. I don't know if it's the holder, because here's the thing with the holder. Like, if it was the holder, it's been the same holder all year round. And so we should have seen this early.
Yeah. I don't know. I literally could not tell you what's wrong, because the way he's kicking, and I'm not a kicking expert, but the way he kicked, as far as just his follow through, all that, it looks exactly the same as it did the first kick of the season. So I don't know if it's, like you said, it could possibly be his leg getting tired. I didn't even know. I'm not a kicker, so I don't know if your legs get tired, but I'd assume as much as
they do. They do get worn out. Yeah.
Yeah. But so I don't know. I think, and the thing about kicking is it's such a small world, in a sense that you miss. It's like 99% of the time people are like, it's your fault. Most people don't know if it was a great snap, if it was a bad snap, if it was a great hold. Like, people barely know the surface level of that. So they just see the missed kick and they're like, oh, the kicker's terrible. I even sometimes do that to myself, like, when I'm watching games. So that thing that you can get in your head a lot. You can get in your head a bit about it, but I truthfully don't know what's going on.
All right, so real quick, moving away from Boomer, who's supposedly getting NIL interest. I don't know if there's a Cougar collective out there that's for his dropping bombs and kissing moms segment, if they're pooling their money to get Boomer to go to their school. However, key seniors that are leaving this year: JRP, Pauli, who went to center and was our best center. He played really, really well. I think if we would have had him earlier in the season, other than a few snaps that were a little off, he played really well. Tylen Grable, Alec Holler, obviously, Trayvon Morris-Brash, Yates. We gave him a lot of grief, but he played pretty well the last couple of games. He was all over the field, actually. He was, if you watched him, you saw 27 streaking across the field quite a bit to get those edge rushers. Jason Johnson, we lose, which is huge. To Jordan Mask, we lose, who was doing really, really well until he got injured. Big question is, will they play in the bowl or opt out? We're now that P5 level as to whether they're going to play in the bowl or opt out. And I think who we're playing in the bowl, and what bowl game we play is going to dictate that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
1,000%. Because I think a lot of these, so just getting into the process a little bit, a lot of these guys, we kind of know what they are as players. They're not really guys who have like this untapped potential that we hasn't been able to fully express. A lot of these guys we have seen play a lot of meaningful football. We know what they're very good at. We know what could possibly be a weakness of theirs. So there's not much more on tape for them to put. As far as showcasing their skill, we've seen a lot of it. Now, if you go play, for example, if we get a Miami who's, a highly sought after program in the sense that they put guys in the NFL a lot at every position. That's just the nature of it. If you can get a matchup to where you can go showcase, hey, this guy's an NFL prospect, let me go up against him and line up and show how good I am. First, like, for example, when we played LSU, we played Auburn. Those at the time were showcase games for us, playing Baylor. Because how many times did we get to play LSU caliber talent? How many times did we get to play Auburn caliber talent? If you can showcase that you can dominate those guys, belong on the same field, scouts look at that. So if we get, like I said, a Miami, I could see them playing. If we get a James Madison, I wouldn't be surprised if guys opt out. And I wouldn't necessarily be mad at them either because, again, the things that most of these guys have to work on are speed. For the most part, it's just training speed because the 40 is different than just play speed. And yes, it shouldn't matter how fast you run your 40. It should be how fast you run on tape. But guys, they care about it. So you need to train for it so you can give your best thought. And that's what most of these guys are probably going to be training ideally. Maybe get a little bit of weight. You change. When you're training, it's very different than what you eat at school, dealing with classes. When you're going straight 6 to 8 weeks, work out, sleep, wake up, work out, sleep. That's it every day. Nothing else. That's all you're doing. So I think it will be the opt-outs will be contingent on who we play, which it sucks, but I get it too. Like I get why go out there, risk getting hurt, why go out there when you've shown so much against high-quality opponents. If you're not playing another high-quality opponent, what can you do to help your stock in that sense when most of the stuff we've seen, we know who these players are?
All right. That takes us out of this segment. I think that's a good place to pivot. Unfortunately, this week we don't have another game to look forward to and preview. So we're going to have to wait until the conference championships are over and then for whatever the bowl game is. So we get to watch the coaching carousel as we move along and talk about all the other things that we do. And we as a show will start pivoting and bringing basketball into the limelight for the second half of the show. But now we're going to change to a little bit of UCF student re-education. What we're talking about this week is the UCF's conference journey. So one of the things that a lot of the more recent fans and current students don't know is all of us that have slogged through all of the different conferences that UCF has been in on its rise up the ladder to where it is now in the Big 12. So I'm going to run through our conference journey dating all the way back to 1975. Now, there are some gaps where we were independent that were in here as well. So if
we were on a break.
Yeah, we were on a break. We needed some space. Because we're space you, but dad jokes galore in this segment. All right, so we're going to start with the Sunshine State Conference. We were participants in the Sunshine State Conference from 1975 to 1984. So that was back when it was okay to when I think the legal drinking age was 18, and people were mad that open container laws were going into place. So that was when I was born around that time, right? I was born in 1981. I'm 42. And so that was the time when, people were doing those kinds of things, not wearing their seatbelts and everything else. Then we had a little bit of a gap. And we joined the American South Conference, which I don't even know if they still exist. And that was from 1990 to 91. And in 1990 and 91, one of the things that was happening was the Gulf War, which my dad was participating in at the time. I was 10 years old, was not aware of UCF whatsoever. Obviously, I didn't live in Florida until I was 17. And I was watching my dad on CNN and trying to figure out where he was. Then we moved on to the Sun Belt Conference, which is kind of funny because in soccer, we came back to the Sun Belt Conference. And we were in the Sun Belt Conference from 1991 to 1992. Josh Lazar, since our producer is sleeping, let me know in the comments that the American South merged with the Sun Belt. So there you go. Then we joined the ASUN, or Atlantic Sun Conference, which is still around, mostly in basketball, is what they're known for. From 1992 to 19. Wow. Okay, Noah, look that up because somehow 92 to 2005 it got put in there, and that wasn't correct. So let's confirm the ASUN Conference. But anyway, in 2002, we decided to move to the MAC. Now, we were independent in between that time as we moved up the division levels. We thought we were going to, the thinking at the time was we were going to make it into the SEC. So that was the AD's thoughts. They wanted to stay independent. We had really, really difficult schedules. Sun Belt was 91 to 92. ASUN, Atlantic Sun.
It's right. I looked it up. It says till 2005.
Oh, okay. Till 2005. So maybe we had some of our sports in the Atlantic Sun. Yeah, because it was football only in the MAC. That's right. Yeah. That's why it says that. Okay. So wasn't crazy when I was looking this up. So anyway, so we went independent in football. This were the times when we thought, we think it's bad when we play Texas Tech, but the refs were jobbing us with phantom play calls against teams like Georgia and Clemson and that kind of stuff. And that was the time when we were also playing people like Scott Frost. At Nebraska, and we got a standing ovation at the half when we were playing them. In the MAC, we went, that was our first winless season in the MAC. And during our time in the MAC, we had a rival called Marshall. That was that was our main big rival. Everybody hated Marshall. And I believe we were 0-17, beat Marshall at home in the Citrus Bowl finally, tore the goalpost down, and took them to the reflecting pond. I will not confirm or deny, but our good friend Ben Stout may have been part of that. I don't know how that worked out because he's 7 foot. So he was carrying pretty much the whole weight of the goalpost above everyone else because he's so much taller than everyone else. So he may or may not, and allegedly, have participated in said goalpost ending up in the reflecting pond. Then we moved on to Conference USA, which we mentioned earlier. We were in Conference USA from 2005 till 2012 and moved to the Big East, or what we thought was the Big East. In 2011, we were originally supposed to move USF, or the Cows, the directionally challenged school from West Central Florida, blocked us from joining the Big East. That's what we talked about last week during that time frame. And we finally ended up moving into the Big East with Memphis and Houston. And then as we were joining the Big East, West Virginia and a bunch of other schools left. And that then became the AAC, or American Athletic Conference. Louisville was there for that first year, as was Rutgers. Both of those left. One funny GIF or play that you want to watch as a UCF fan is when Will Standback absolutely creamed the punter for, or was it the punter? Who is it?
Pause.
Pause. What?
Go ahead. What
just happened? I totally missed it. I freeze?
No, I called it, Noah.
Yeah.
What
go ahead, Roger. Just go ahead, Roger. We'll talk about that.
Okay, I don't know what just happened. But that being said, something hilarious happened. So hopefully you guys catch it on the playback. But anyway, the point was that Will Stanback absolutely took out a Rutgers, I believe it was the punter, on a return. So
he trucked someone.
He trucked him. He more than trucked him. I mean, creamed him. So, oh gosh, that's what you're talking about. Oh my gosh, you guys are terrible. You guys are like 13 years old. 13 years old. I swear.
I heard it, looked at Trey, and I knew exactly the word he was thinking.
Oh my goodness. Out of context conversations with the Gutter Gophers here. So anyway, we were in the AAC until we moved to the Big 12. So that is a brief journey in UCF's conference journey, as well as independence, where we had the gall that we thought we were actually going to join the SEC after moving up to Division I. And obviously that didn't didn't happen. So moving on, we will now move to Trey's segment, which is traditionally called Trey Yells at Cloud. We were debating whether this would be a Trey Whispers at Cloud or Talks to Cloud. But Trey said he talks sternly to a cloud. So Trey, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not going to complain much. The season's completed. We're bowl eligible. That was with how our season turned mid-year, I was like, we're not winning another game. I mean, I've been on here plenty of times saying I don't see how we get to 6 wins at the point where we were talking about it. But yeah, I mean, overall, we played pretty well. We played pretty sound. Things that we can work on defensively. I think we missed some tackles early. I think early our tackling was suspect. But, we cleaned it up. We got timely turnovers. And I think that's what the best teams that I've seen, we weren't perfect. When I played defense, we missed tackles. We always tried to play physical, and we always tried to turn the ball over. I think they have trying to get turnovers. They've from last year to this year, they've done that. And that was one of the things on the old show that me and Rogers talk about. We're not ball aware. I think this year these guys go for the football. I think they try to make plays. The only problem is I think we're just not physical enough at the point of attack. Outside of our D-line, Lee Hunter and Ricky Barber, we don't really strike guys and try to displace guys. That's a big thing about defense. So I guess that's my only gripe from this game is I didn't – I think we played – otherwise I think we played pretty well. I think the guys played sound. They made plays, and that's all I can talk. So not really a yell because I wasn't really mad, but – a stern talking. I think going into 2024, if we can get more physical, I think, depending on how we get offensively, because we're going to lose some guys, I think we can be a very good team again in this upcoming year. I don't want to get too far ahead because we still have the bowl game, but, I think if we can fix some things just as a mentality defensively and carry over a lot that we had this year for offense, I think we can be a great team. Like you said earlier, Josh, this team feels like a 9-win, 8-9 win team, which
it was an 8 or 9 win team.
Yeah,
it was definitely a 7-win team, right? It was definitely a 7-win team because Baylor never should have happened.
We're definitely a 6-win team. Definitely. We 99% should have been a 7-win team. And I think realistically we could have been an 8 to 9 win team. I think there were some games we were just physically outmatched, both sides. Injuries played a part in it too. But, I mean, again, I think there's a lot to build on. There's a lot that we can build on from this year positively, and there's a lot of things that we can correct that are correctable things. It's not like, oh, we just don't have the guys. It's not like, oh, our guys are just too small. That showed up, but as we get into the years and the recruiting starts to pick up, I think those are fixable things. You can fix being more physical. You can fix those things. You can fix tackling. So that's my talk.
We have a lot of four-star talent coming in this year. So depending on who drops out and what our QB situation is, right, that's going to dictate a lot because they're going to take a little bit to get acclimated. I mean, it's the same thing with like Braden Marshall, right? Clearly,
and competition breeds greatness. Like I've said it plenty of times on the show. The hardest team we ever had to go against offensively as a defense was our own guys, was the McKenzie Milton team. Even when I was a freshman with Justin Holman and Rashad Perriman and Rennell Hall, like you're talking about 5, 6, 7 receivers. Jackie Williams, who's like our 7th receiver. When Traquan Smith, we know how great he is. When he's your 8th best receiver on your team, you've got a room full of receivers. So that just competition breeds greatness. So the more guys we get in,
hold on, you just said Traquan Smith was the 8th best receiver in the receiver room
in 2014. Yeah, when we had like Rashad Perriman, Rennell Hall, JJ Warren,
that's
Josh
true.
Reese. Now, talent wise, he's up there. He's better than those guys. But at the time, he was a freshman. But I mean, I saw him on scout team.
I don't think he was better than Perryman.
What do you think? Oh, as a freshman?
Well, as a freshman, probably. No, I don't think he was at all. I don't think he was at all. Perryman was fast.
Yeah, Perriman had a jetpack on his
now
he was Adrian Killens in a 6'2" body.
Yeah, 100%. Ran like the fastest 40 time in the combine.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think I'm just saying, like at the time in 2014 when you had like JJ Warren, Josh Reese, when Josh Reese is your 4th receiver, I saw Traquan Smith on scout team destroying that starting defense with Terrence Plummer, Brandon Alexander, Jacoby Glenn. He was destroying them by himself, so like that's when you have that kind of talent, that's how you become a better team. You can't just have, our starters are good and our backups are just what.
Well, I mean, we were called wide receiver U for a reason back then, and also DBU because we had some great defensive backs back then too.
Yeah. So I think when you get that competition, I don't put a lot of weight in stars. Obviously, it's great for recruiting, but when it just on paper, the higher rated guys you should have better players.
Well, they're more physically ready. So one of the things that that UCF kind of became known for was what they call diamond mining, which is you get a guy who's a 2-star, 3-star who isn't physically ready but has talent, and you found them, and you take 2 years to develop him to the point physically where he can be that difference maker. And we had a history of doing that. And you think about Brandon Marshall or Mike Sims Walker, or any of those guys. I mean, Brandon Marshall played defense for a while there.
He played some safety at UCF.
Yeah.
Yes. I saw him at Penn State up in
Imagine a 6'4.5" safety. That's just crazy.
O'Leary put the best players in whatever position he can figure out when he first got here, and that was weird to look at. But that's also I know it's diverting a bit, but that's what I want the players to be enriched as much as they can be. I'm not one of these people that think, the degree is worth all the time, right? And Trey might feel the same way. But what you do lose, all of those quote diamonds in the rough will go to nil if they are at a school that doesn't have a nil program that can pay them after they've been polished up. Right?
Well, what they're doing now is they're going JUCO. That's what's happening. All those two stars and all those guys, they're all, because of the transfer portal, are all going JUCO, and then they're waiting 2 years. And so now the NIL programs for JUCOs.
Same process.
Right. Except they're doing it at a lower level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which, it's different. I grew up in the age where, you go in, you sit, you develop. If you're not ready, you develop. And there was nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Now, if you're not a highly recruited guy at a high school, most of the time they're going to take the ready now product in college. They're going to go to the guys that are year 2, year 3 in college because they need the league. They're not the league.
So what does that sound like, Trey? What does that sound like? It sounds like the NFL.
Yeah, and that's what
Yeah.
I accidentally slipped up and said the league instead of college. That's what it's turning into. It's turning into a win now business. It's a win now proposition. You don't, even to the coaches don't have time to build a program anymore. We want to win now. That's the problem. I mean, I understand it, but that's not how you build anything. Successful is not built overnight. You have to gut it.
Didn't Carolina just fire, like talking about the league, they just fired their coach in his first season.
Games.
Right. And his previous team that he was coaching, which is the Colts. He got fired there after going 1-4.
Yeah. And
that first year.
You can't build anything successful like that. No. You gotta go through the lump sometimes and just get the base and then just build it. And I think sadly that's gonna be, that's the downfall of society, really. You want everything fast. We have smartphones that I remember growing up, getting on the internet, waiting on it to reboot. I know some of y'all might not even had internet that are listening, growing up. But I remember growing up, the Dell computer clicking and waiting. I'd play the little pinball just as the internet loaded up. I had plenty of fun doing it. Just now people are like, oh, what's the answer to this? Go on Google, get it. I want this. Go on Amazon Prime. It's a different world, so everybody wants everything faster. And I think it's even carried over into sports where, we want to win now. Transfer portal.
Well, and that's the difference. That's the difference between a 4-star and a 3-star and a 2-star. They're physically ready, right? Yeah. And for us, we're getting the higher level, more physically ready athletes or physically gifted athletes that are taller or more massive or whatever, that have the frames that can do that. Whereas,
and it makes a difference.
People like Miller, right? And for those of you that are longtime UCF fans, remember Miller, he developed technique and then he translated that to the league. And so, one of the things you said, Trey, and we all have talked about is George O'Leary's ability to develop technique to get them league ready. So they weren't just relying on their bodies, right, to be successful. They had to focus on the technique and be so good at their technique that they could take that to the NFL level. And that's why we had so many NFL players coming out of
the NFL. Program. Yeah, the thing about the NFL is everybody, 99.99999% of the guys are athletically gifted. They all can run fast. They're big. They hit hard. They can catch everything. The thing that separates you at that level even more drastically is your technique. And Coach O'Leary being, he coached in the NFL plenty, long time. Him being able to do that is what you saw a lot of guys have success coming out of UCF, even, from when he got there to when he left. That's something that you can't, that's gold to me, is the things, and not even just football technique, just how to go about being a professional, showing up to meetings 30 minutes early. Yeah, 18 years old. Does it suck showing up 30 minutes early? Absolutely. Because you're like, man, I can be taking a nap. I can be doing this, that, and the third, whatever. But, when you get to the NFL, you show up 30 minutes early. That's what it takes. Being on time, that's the difference in making the roster versus being cut. So, I think, with the inflection of 4-star guys, 5-star guys, hopefully down the line that we get, the talent's going to breed greatness, that's all that we want.
Depth. It's depth.
And
you're going to hit on more people.
Yeah, when you lose a Lee Hunter or Ricky Barber, it might be a slight drop-off, but they can still go in there and be a game record just like those guys. That's what made Alabama so great this whole run. Their second, third-string guys were just as good as their first-string guys, and I think that's what we're trying to work.
I mean, UCF was the benefactor of that, right? I mean, look at Javon Baker.
Yeah, exactly.
He was in Alabama. He didn't make the starting roster. A lot of guys go to Bama. They sit there for a year, and then they're like, okay, I'm not going to start, so I'm going to move on to somebody else.
When you're bringing in 5 highly rated 5-stars every year, it's hard to – if you don't make that impression early, it's not – and even a guy like Aaron Robinson, he's an NFL player. He couldn't crack the lineup at Bama. Like, you're talking about an NFL guy. He went third, I think, early third round here. He could not crack the lineup at Alabama. That just shows you the depth that they had, So, like, again, if you have NFL talent that can't play, that shows you just how hard it is to not only, play at Alabama, but make it in the NFL. So it's tough. So, again, competition breeds greatness. You get more of those guys in, the product gets better, and the depth gets there. So
All right. So iron sharpens iron. No, bruh. Are you able to share your tab with what we were just discussing with that Will Standback hit or no?
I'm pretty sure.
Try it. We're doing it live.
All right. So if not, we're throwing the technical difficulties banner up for no, bruh.
Listen, we got to learn somehow. Okay, what do we got? Ooh.
Portals out in the flat, another completion.
Oh!
Jesus.
That's what happens when you don't want to tackle. He was scared to tackle. He did not want to tackle Standback.
No.
That's what happened.
That's nasty.
And that, I will tell you, I did a little research just to make sure. So that gentleman, number 31, he actually went on to play a lot. He went on to play like almost every snap for 4 years at Rutgers. He was on the Raiders for a hot minute. He's been in the CFL for many years. He played in 2022 in the U.S. Football League and had a stat. Yeah, so it just goes to show you, if you take your time and develop, like we've talked about, because this is 2013, you can go some places. I was very shocked when I read that. Not that he did something with his career. Anthony Chiaffi, I'm going to try. But I mean, Oakland, Ottawa, British Columbia, Tampa Bay. He's gotten a bunch of intercept. He's gotten an interception last.
Well, he probably got on everybody's radar because he got knocked out on the play, and and maybe he did the Burrow where he got some sense knocked into him, like Joey Connors did.
That happens to every. If you play defense, you've been hit like that before. You've gotten trucked. That comes with the game. It comes with the physicality of the game. Sometimes I think Marshawn Lynch said it. Sometimes I got, but I'm going to get mine more than I do that. That's all. That's what it's all about. Like, it's not about getting beat. You're going to get beat. Nobody was perfect, but it's about how you respond and bouncing back. So,
all right. So, Nobra, his first successful GIF deployment in show. So, congratulations, Nobra. So we're gonna say for that segment or that portion, it's a yes, brah. So, congratulations on that, Nobra. All right, let's go ahead and pivot again and talk a little bit about UCF hoops, which was a little bit more difficult of a pill to swallow. So, hooping and hollering, more hollering this week than hooping. We've been playing several close games, came out on the right side of those. Up until this point. And for those of you that aren't following, unfortunately, we lost to Stetson 85-82 for the season. We are 4-2. To me, still better than what we were expecting. But at the end of the day, it's Stetson. And not just that it's Stetson, but it's Donnie Jones coach Stetson. For those of you that don't remember, he was our head coach before Johnny Dawkins. And, we came off of going into the game, we were on a 20-game win streak. Stetson actually was a conference mate and a heated rival back in the day. So this one stings. I mean, it really stings. Sellers had another stellar game, led the way with 34 points and 8 assists.
Should have the ball more.
Yeah, Darius Johnson contributed 15 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, which on the surface looks like a good stat line. However, if you watch the game, Darius Johnson, I don't know what it is like this year and last year. Last year, I kind of understood it. This year, he's no longer the focal point. He has a tendency that when we either get behind or he feels like he has to make a difference, he goes a little wild. So he will drive the paint, not get the fouls, and throw up wild shots. And those are lost possessions, and in close games, that's tough. So, Darius Johnson, has been a great player for us, but he does have a tendency to do that, and that can hurt us sometimes. Allen had 11 points. UCF blew a 13-point lead during this game. UCF shot 78% from the charity stripe, which, by the way, 78% is a lot better than what we've been doing for the season. We've been hovering around 58 to 62% this season. So we actually shot well from the charity stripe this game. However, we shot 33% from three. We have to get our shots behind the arc better. Stetson, on the other hand, was lights out in the second half from behind the arc, 43% from outside. Stetson also hit 14 straight free throws in the second half. So, I mean, when you're shooting like that in a close game where it's fouls, driven by fouls, I mean, 14 straight free throws, that's tough to beat in a close game. So, Josh, you were there. What thoughts did you have?
I was there. So this is the difference between the statistics and being at the game. So you say we shot 78% from the line, and I love Diallo, but all I can see him is bricking every single shot over and over again. He couldn't. So
he went Shaq on us.
It was bad. It was bad, and it's not on him. It's kind of like our football team in ways. Or I was talking about it like Boomer. Once Boomer gets past the yips and sees it go through enough times, it'll get better. Whether he's on another team or our team, who knows? But regardless, that's what's going to happen. Diallo did not saw one go in. I don't even have his exact stats, but I was there. Not a lot went in. So that was definitely part of the problem. We had a good lead in the first half. We led by 6 at the half, but that's only because it was down to 1, and we had a small push before halftime. And there just wasn't the energy, the effort. It was just not there. So Stetson, we were going under screens often, and they were just popping threes and getting a lot of them in. The last I looked, it was like 13 of 30, and it's probably more at the end of the game because at some point I just stopped looking at the stats. But
they went 13 from 30, so they were volume shooting, right? Well, what versus
us?
And
honestly, the end of the game, like, it was a confluence of all of the worst things that could happen to us. We couldn't get our confidence back, but slowly started creeping in. We started fouling, and they hit every single shot. We fouled not their main players. Someone who hasn't shot a free throw the entire game when we got to foul them hits 2. And when Donnie Jones is at UCF, that was not a hallmark of UCF basketball. Not that we're bad, but we weren't doing that. And they hit every single 3-pointer when it counted from insane angles. So the end of the game for us when they went up by 4 truly was a good defensive play, 3 or 2 seconds left. One of their better scorers hit a fadeaway fallback 3-pointer from the corner with a rainbow of an arc that just swished as the buzzer went off, and everyone was deflated. That's after Darius Johnson had an and one to get it back within 1. Yeah, it was that, and I've been to many Stetson games. I've been to DeLand for Stetson games. I was there and right near the lower angle when Jordan dunked on Marcus dunked on him. Like, I've been to tons of Stetson games. This is deflating. Now, do I think we pick it back up? Yeah. Do I think this is an anomaly? We'll find out in 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, we're not. You're looking at who's left. Maines and Lipscomb's former conference mates, I think, in ASUN. There are teams we should absolutely beat, but Stetson's a team we should absolutely beat. Honestly, I feel like we need to figure out how. I think there was 2 things. There was a letdown from the win in Charlotte versus Charlotte and all that stuff. You have Thanksgiving in the beginning of those 6 days you didn't have a game. There was a bit of a lull, and we just couldn't get past it. We'll see what happens on Saturday versus Lipscomb. Again, a game we should probably win. Jacksonville and Maine and Fam and Bethune-Cookman. Let's see what happens, because as soon as we get Kansas State,
but that's the strategy though, Josh, right?
Yeah.
Is
No.
you load hold on. You load up on teams that you should beat, so that when you get in conference, the losses that you do take are RPI losses. They don't hurt you that much in the Big 12. So we had teams in the Big 12 last year that won maybe 5 or 6 games and still made the tournament, right? So that's the formula. But you got to win these games. I mean, look, our 3-point percentage is still hurting us. We were not making the field goals late in the paint. There's no way with our defense and as much focus as we have on it that it should be 85-82. We had a huge size advantage on them.
Yes, but see, again, yes, and we did have a size advantage, but the problem there was our bigs were not, they got doubled every single time they were in the paint. Every single time.
I'm talking more about defensively. It doesn't matter if they're switching and doing that.
They were pulling them out. They were pulling them out to the 3-point line and driving past them.
I get that, but that's my point. Yeah. The amount of size that we have on our team versus the amount of size that they had on theirs, it still should not have happened. So at the end of the day,
100% agree.
At the end of the day, they shot 47%. We shot 43%.
They shot lights out at the end when it counted. That was the killer part. Hit every free throw, hit every 3-pointer, just wouldn't miss. And that's, part of the game. I will say, I actually think the real litmus test on where we're going to be in the season when it comes down to it is going to be that Ole Miss game. I only say that because Ole Miss has gone up to Temple and won. And Temple is usually not a slouch of basketball. They played, I think, Detroit Mercy, who is also not always a slouch of basketball either. They're 5-0 right now. They're going against some other pretty big teams. They're probably going to come in here like 7-1, 6-2, maybe 8-0. That might be a good test to see where we're at. Because if we end up beating Lipscomb and Jacksonville, that might be more of the caliber team that we're going to see every single week in the Big 12. But it hurts. It hurts, and I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, so going back to the stats and where I was going with that. So you had 43 to 33% on 3-point shooting. Again, that 30% is not going to do it for us. I mean, we only shot 18 times. So again, the goal would be to drive the paint and get as many fouls as you can. We shot 78%. They shot 91%. The other piece that hit us with the size advantage that we had was on the glass, right? So offensive rebounds, we had 12 offensive rebounds. They had 6. We had 12 offensive rebounds. Those should turn into points. They didn't this game. Defensive rebounds, they out-rebounded us 26-23. Assists, 17-14. Steals, 6-4. Blocks, 2-3. Turnovers, 17-13. So we really didn't have a lot of turnovers. But that's 4 possessions that we could have scored on and didn't. And so at the end of the day, I guess my point is our defense, and this is where I'll go all Trey on everybody, our defense should have been able to pull this game out for us. We did enough offensively. We scored 82 points. That should be good enough to beat a Stetson caliber team any day of the week. Our defense absolutely failed. Yes, they were contested shots. Yes, they typically don't make that. But UCF, I know we joke about it all the time, how teams, especially last season, that shot like 20% or 30% from behind the arc would shoot like 50 in contested shots. It can't just be that. There's missing components. We weren't either in the right defense or we weren't pivoting properly when we were in our defense to be able to stop them. And the other thing that drives me nuts is when we do, against a team that is going to be smaller, that should have more speed than you, doing ball screens or screens at the top of the key and just doing the loop-to-loop, wasting 20 seconds off of in the half-court game
Like
which is where we should win, right?
Yeah.
They should only be winning in the transition game, and they weren't. They were shooting the 3-point, the 3-ball, and because they were shooting the 3-ball and winning, that's why they won the game.
I mean, I will tell you this: you are right, but we couldn't make our way back because of how amazingly they were shooting. I got to give them some credit. Like their second half field goal percentage, 3-point percentage was 52%, 9 for 17. Their free throw percentage in the second half was 20 for 21. We shouldn't be in the hole.
Listen, if that was in the second half, it was 20 to 21. That means we fouled a lot in the second half because they were 22 and 24 overall.
No. They only had 3 free throws in the first half. We fouled the last 2-3 minutes of the game to try to get back in because it wasn't happening otherwise, and they hit every single free throw. It was. That's what I say. Sometimes stats tell one thing, and watching it tells another thing, and being there also can be a little different. We and 10 is 5,000 is a little inflated. So anyway, it was a tough game. And I might not have to go to Lipscomb and have another conversation about this next podcast. So we'll see what happens next week.
All right, so moving on, we unfortunately do not have Alan's oxymoronic stat of the week because we don't have Alan. So he had one ready. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So we're moving on to Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week. So Josh, take it away.
Yeah, maybe this might be a sad fact of the week if this actually happened to anyone in the audience, but it's quite possible. So we're talking about some of Trey's bowl games, and in 2014 he went to the Tropicana or the Trop to play NC State in something called the Bitcoin Bowl. So that was on December 26th, and we did not prevail in that game. Now, that game, the tickets were about $50, and Bitcoin was a bit of a new thing. So they said you can buy your ticket with a Bitcoin. Now, in 2014, not everyone, I saw Anobra's eyes light up. There was not a lot of people who knew how to do that in 2014. To give you an idea, Bitcoin in 2014 at that time was $327 approximately at the end of that day. So if you bought your ticket with Bitcoin to watch UCF lose, how much would that $50 in Bitcoin be worth approximately today? Closest to the Pinwins.
So you're spending a coin.
I've got a story for that.
I have a story too.
Okay, so let's get the number.
So,
and I know we have some other stories.
Story,
so this loops in great.
Yeah, my story on this is they were actually, and I don't know if it was that Bitcoin Bowl or it was another Bitcoin Bowl where they were trying to drum up Bitcoin like popularity or whatever. So if you went to the Bitcoin Bowl, and it was one of the ones that I actually was supposed to go to, they were offering a Bitcoin with each person that went to the bowl. Obviously, it wasn't worth $300 at the time. Yeah. So it must have been one of the earlier ones. And it was because UCF went to 2 Bitcoin bowls. So this must have been the first one. And so I was supposed to go. I'd gotten my ticket and I'd sold my ticket. So I lost out on the Bitcoin. So had I kept that Bitcoin, and you could pay for beer, by the way, on that Bitcoin. If I had kept that Bitcoin, at one point, it was worth like $50,000 for one Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So Roger,
story.
If you bought that $50 ticket in 2014, how much money would that ticket? How much do you think that percentage of Bitcoin is now worth?
If it was, go ahead.
So you're buying the ticket with the Bitcoin, or you're buying a Bitcoin?
You bought your ticket with Bitcoin in 2014. How much money is that now worth? That $50 Bitcoin ticket?
Oh, it's in the millions. Oh wait, $50? Well, yeah, I
bought
thought
a
you said it
ticket
was
for
300. I thought you said it
worth
was
of Bitcoin.
$50 worth of Bitcoin in 2014. Bitcoin
What's Bitcoin at now? What?
$39,000. 37, 39.
It got up to like 50 some thousand.
Maybe
It got
7K.
beyond that. It's
Yeah,
$37,124 right now.
37,000. So
that ticket might have costed 7K. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
yeah,
7.
I'll say five. Around 5,000.
Okay.
Roger's doing math.
Roger?
He's cheating.
Stop doing math.
Well, if you said it was $300, it was $300.
Come on, you're really gonna get out the calculator?
I'm not. I'm thinking.
Okay.
I'm using my Sheldon calculator, which is
Okay.
probably off because, I've been drinking some Citronaut tonight. So
Let's look at that cup.
I don't know if it was $300 for a Bitcoin and you bought a $50. That means you don't have a full Bitcoin. So I'm going to say it's somewhere around $6,000.
You are, I'd say, closest to the pin without going over would be Trey. It's $5,722 approximately. So if you were to have, instead of keeping that Bitcoin and not selling it, which most people did back then anyway, your $50 ticket would really be the equivalent. We're not talking time value of money. If there's any economics majors and whatever, generally speaking, $5,722.
Jeez.
That's
clearly, I was not using a calculator and doing mental math. Otherwise, I would have given
You're pretty good. No,
5,700.
you're all within the same generation. You're good. Trey, you said you had a story about the Bitcoin Bowl too?
Yeah, so like I told you earlier, at the bowl games, they give you like a stipend just throughout the week.
Don't tell me they gave you Bitcoin for the stipend.
No. They gave us
insane.
But they were telling us, they're like, hey, you guys, if you guys want to buy Bitcoin, you can buy it at a discount. You guys are playing, you can buy it at a discount, but you still have to buy it. So imagine 18-year-old kids got saying, hey, let's go buy this cryptocurrency. We're all like, man, are you kidding me? We're about to go, we're about to go buy it. So we're going to the mall. We're about to do this, blah, blah, blah. I remember one of our GA coaches, his name was Fitz. His name, I think it was Sean Fitz. I forgot his last name, or I think it's Fitzgerald. I don't know. We called him Fitz. He was like, listen, I know you guys want to go buy, go shop, go buy some shoes, clothes, whatever. Spend your money how you want. He's like, if I were you, I would use a day or two of your stipend and just invest in 1 to 2 big, as much as you can buy. He said, invest in it. He's like, because you guys are going to get food. They already gave us bowl gear, things like that. He's like, y'all don't need it. He's like, just invest. He's like, because if this hits, you're never going to have to work a day in your life. And boy, how dumb do we feel 10 years later when he told us about that? Like, I literally remember him saying,
did he do it?
I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't heard from him since, so he might have.
He's in his G6 laughing at y'all right now. Is what's happening.
Yeah.
But I literally will never forget. He's like, you guys should use it. And I remember guys were like, man, Fitz, you don't know what you're talking about. We're not about to spend our money on that. Like, why would we invest in cryptocurrency of all things? But man, I'm not. And he was always like a really smart dude. Like, he was very smart. But we're like, man, we're not listening to you. But
offensive quality
so rough.
Yeah, the life of an 18-year-old. You're not worried about your future. You're just worried about the now. So Noah, somebody comes up to you talking about somebody smart that you trust, that you know is smart, talking about investing in this. I do a little bit of research. Don't just blindly do it.
It's so tough because the cryptocurrency market's so
yeah.
It's different now though.
Yeah,
like and not to get on a whole crypto thing, but I'm just trying to.
Yeah, you are, and we've got if we're gonna make our 207, we've still got to talk about the quick update on UCF Sports. People come.
Sure, fine. All
right, so
John Fitzgerald, if you're out there, let us know.
Genius.
Write us some bucks.
There you go. Contribute to our NIL. I don't know. All right. So we've got Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week, which made us all sad. And now we're going to be moving on to the quick update on other UCF sports. Josh, are you going to do that this week?
Sure, I can do that. I'm just trying to find Sean Fitzgerald now. Sorry.
All right, if you're going to do that, then I'll do it.
No,
The
I'm good,
UCF women's hoops went 3-0 this past week. All right.
I'm here. Okay. So the UCF women's hoops team went 3-0 past week. They won the Puerto Rico Classic, and I will tell you at the game, a lot of the staff and assistants that were at the men's team had really cool USA and Mexico shirts with Knights in the front, both flags in the back with Knights on the front and Big 12.
By the way, soccer jerseys are now available, and they are fly.
Nice. Are you allowed to use the word fly at 42 years old, sir? That's.
I use. Okay, Mr. No Cap. All right, I don't want to hear anything about that.
Yeah, that's in text. I could do that in text. So they beat Jackson State, St. John's, and Sacred Heart. They're sitting at 6-0 on the season. So they're going to play Campbell, another old conference pro of UCF, on Sunday. Unfortunately, the UCF women's volleyball team was not selected to the NCAA tournament. I believe 7 other Big 12 teams were. We did talk about on this podcast often how we were doing really well, but it was a backloaded, really good backside of the volleyball team schedule. And yeah, unfortunately, we did not get in. I think we have 4 ranked NCAA teams too in this conference. So this is a volleyball conference as well. Also, we have a UCF softball. No official teams, but we're Knights versus Knots coming up this week internally for the team. That's it for the UCF Sports updates on other UCF Sports. Back to you, Roger.
All right. I'm just going to say this. The UCF women's team, if you're not watching them, you should. They are they're continuing their dominance, really.
Yeah.
On their season thus far, Satya Messer has put together a really, really good team. They most recently played, and we'll talk about them a little bit more, Sacred Heart, who were 4-3. UCF field goal percentage was out of their minds. It was 53.1%. The score was 69-58, and they shot 50% from behind the arc. So 3-point land, they're shooting 50%. This team shoots the three really, really well, which is something that we kind of got used to with Diamond Battles and the ladies back when Coach Abe was here. And they're pushing it up again. And like I told you guys, we've got other recruits, very, very big time, 4-star, very tall young ladies coming in that are going to make this team good for a really long time. So get on the train now, get on the bandwagon now. Because if you're not watching them and going to the games, especially you season ticket holders for men's team, because remember, you can get into the women's basketball games for free. They're usually right before the men's game. So make sure that you're going and watching the ladies because A, they deserve the support, and B, they're going to be really good and even better next year. So super excited about that. We move on from that, and let's go ahead and start with our pick our poison score predictions recap, because we don't have a score to predict for this week. And let's talk about that a little bit. So last week, Alan had the UCF win at 28-17 UCF, which is pretty darn close to what the score ended up being. Josh had 38-24 UCF. Houston didn't hold up their end of the bargain there. Honestly, it should be 34-13, but Boomer had a day in the wrong direction. Trey was 38-20 UCF, and again, we did shut down our offense basically in the 9th minute of the third quarter.
Yeah. No Baylor's happening.
Yeah, and then I had 32-21 UCF, and Noah had 32-28 UCF. So Alan, in his absence, was victorious.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
No, he wasn't.
How was he not?
The score was 17 points. I got 14 points on the spread. How is Allen winning when he's 11 points between the teams?
What was the score?
How are we grading this?
What was the score?
The score was 27-13.
27-13.
13.
And he had 28-17. Yours is not closer.
Yes, it is. I got the exact difference of the score. We need rules next year.
We had rules. You guys just don't understand it. You're trying to make up your own rules as we go. That's the problem.
Am I taking crazy pills? This is exactly the point differential we talked about in previous podcasts.
No, quit trying to justify
you're moving the goal. You're moving the
goal.
What
was your bet, Josh? What did you? Because the score was 27-13.
Yeah,
he had 38-24.
We've been doing point differential for many weeks. Now Nobra has an assignment. Figure out what we're doing in this grading because it's the goalposts just keep moving. I don't know how you win when you don't.
I've always
personally
thought.
How do you? It's
personally
5 point
always
difference
thought
for
it was like playing like what was it? What's the name of that? Horseshoes. Where the closer you get to the stake, that's what the best score is.
So what we did on our previous podcast and where all this was generated from, and I thought you guys understood this, but clearly you don't. So Professor Lazar does not understand the rules. The rules
they keep changing.
No, they didn't. You guys just kept trying to push your rules, and I kept saying no. So that's how that works, right? So it's always what the score is versus what you predicted, right? What the score differential is there. And even if you go by what you're saying, Josh, you said it was 14 points, right? Because you said 38-24. Allen had 28-17. The final score was what?
27-13.
Exactly. So what's the score differential?
14 points.
Not between what we scored and what they scored, but what the actual score was, dude.
What does score differential mean to you, Roger? Because it sounds like
again the same way we've talked about it every single time, and how we did it on the previous show. What the difference between what Allen said we would have, and what the difference that Allen said they would have, and what you said was 38, so 27, so that's 11 points there. And then you had 24. That's another 14 points, dude. You're way off.
Josh is about to start punching up.
Point differential means two different things to two different people, it seems.
It meant the same thing from the very beginning, but you and Allen took it your own different way. So at the end of the day, next year, we're putting rules in place.
Yes.
And for this year, I think the worst overall score, because I think you had 1,000-1. On one of these weeks you were out, so you automatically lose anyway, and you're buying the steak and Cheetos for this season. So there it is, and because you brought Nobra, it got that much more expensive for you, because now you've got another steak and Cheetos that you have to buy
under protest. If I had a flag, I'd throw it right now.
Thank goodness this is a dictatorship. So
this is my red flag. I can't. No branding. Red flag.
Oh my god! What bag was that? Fritos?
Cheez-Its.
Oh my gosh! That was so close to Cheez-Its.
Sponsored by the Cheez-It Bowl.
There you go. All right.
Flag.
So we're gonna be sponsored by Chick-fil-A this week, by Twisty Treat this week. We're at Jeremiah's this week. We're going to be fat and happy. So post-Thanksgiving, fat and happy. So that's all we have for this week. Unfortunately, we're missing some segments because we're missing Allen this week. But we look forward to having him back next week. Again, for a quick format change on the show. The second half of the show, obviously not bowl week, but because we don't have football games to preview, we will switch our focus onto basketball as they get closer to conference. And, that may be very painful, but, got
some bowl stuff probably next week, right? I mean, we should know by the bowl game.
We'll know by Sunday, because
it's after the conference.
It's
after the conference.
Saturday.
CFP is,
You but like the whole celebration where you get in the room and stuff, that's Sunday. But Saturday night, like late that night.
Yeah, and that means we'll know. But either way, by next Monday, we'll be able to talk about the bowl. I don't know if we want to preview it then, because depending on when the bowl is, it'll be weeks from then. So,
We don't know who's
We'll
playing
just
either.
talk about it. I'm sure.
yeah, we'll talk about where we're going, right?
Yeah,
And then we'll, like I said, we'll pivot to basketball and kind of put our focus on basketball until baseball rolls around. Then we'll have baseball as well. So, and I'm excited about this baseball team and our head coach that we got for our baseball team. I think he's going to be very successful. He's put together a good roster of players, and I'm excited to see what they can do. So that will be it. We missed our 207 mark because we got an argument on
Point
differential.
winning.
So Josh is buying us steak and Cheetos.
I'm
We've already
buying
established
you-
that.
I will
And
make
so
you strip
that's-
steak if you're lucky.
What did he say?
He's gonna
I
buy.
will make you strip steak
He's
if
gonna
you're
make you
lucky.
strip for the
If
steak
you're
if you're lucky.
good, it'll be.
Hey, as long as it's a family size bag of Cheetos, I'm good because I love Cheetos, bro. All
I
right,
like to do
with the steak, you can make us a Philly cheesesteak if you're going to do that. So anyway, that will be it for this week. Thank you so much for following along. If you made it all the way to the end, we appreciate you. Remember to continue to follow, check out, make sure you're checking out the shorts because we'll continue to post those up there as Nobra gets more comfortable. We've got some content to drop this week as well. And go Knights.
Charge on.
Charge on.
Wow.
You didn't say and. We're waiting on the
Yeah.
and.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
all
not
right.
part of the
All right.
official thing, so it
Wow.
doesn't count.
Okay, that was terrible. I mean,
You know
just-
what?
Seriously.
Seriously, stop changing the rules on me. I got the point differential. It's